The big lawsuit is here. David versus the two Goliaths, Apple and Google. Who are we fucking kidding? It's three Goliaths. Epic are just as big when you consider the fact that they're backed by Tencent. And that's what I want to talk to you about today, because I really think that Tencent, they're the true evil in all of this. They're the ones who want control of pretty much everything. I think that they're trying to take over Western media, and they're starting with video games. And today I want to present to you as to why. Hi, Estelden here. So when I heard the news about Epic suing Google and Apple, I didn't really care. I mean, some rich company suing a bunch of other rich companies, who gives a fuck? But the 1984 trailer set off a few alarm bells for me. It made me start to think that something more was going on than just a rich company wanting to get more into their pocket. There had to be something going on due to control. More had to be happening behind the scenes. And I know with the way that I'm carrying on that I kind of resemble this guy. And I won't say that the fact that I haven't been able to leave the house in a month due to what's going on in the world can't possibly have affected my judgment. But I'll tell you this, I've been thinking about this for quite some time. Ever since I first read that Tencent were trying to buy out pretty much all of Ubisoft, they were sinking their teeth in, they were stopping at nothing to take over that whole company. Fortunately, Ubisoft were able to thwart them, and that is another classic case of like big, rich, awful company that we're kind of rooting for, but it's the lesser of two evils at this point. And I will say that no matter pretty much who's fighting against Tencent, I'll always have that company as the lesser compared to what we're fighting for with this Chinese mega giant, whatever it is. I consider them like Evil Corp from Mr. Robot. They're that fucking awful. Tencent for a long time were pretty much just in the background. We hear a lot of talk about them buying up different companies, buying into investments and shares in the gaming industry, particularly in the West, but it hasn't really directly affected us. A lot of people have thought nothing of it because they'll hear, oh, Tencent's bought my favorite company, or they've just had a big buy-in, what's going to happen? Are they going to change the game? And then we hear nothing. We hear pretty much crickets in the background, tumbleweeds going around. We hear absolutely nothing about them and any of their influence. So most people tend to forget. They forget that they're involved at all, they move on. But I'll tell you what happens, because anytime a company buys a business, or if, say, a new manager starts a new job within a successful company, no one's going to go in there and turn things upside down overnight. Why would you do it? I mean, you've bought in, you've spent a lot of your own money, you're not going to ruin it all and go, right, everything's working here, that's fucking gut the whole place, we're going to put our Chinese influence on it. That's never going to be the case. It's going to happen slowly over time. They don't want to ruin a good thing. And a perfect example to me that I've been seeing is an old Reddit thread about when Tencent invested in Grinding Gear Games, the creators of Path of Exile. Now, Grinding Gear Games, they were kind of known as the good guys compared to Blizzard. Blizzard had Diablo, Grinding Gear Games had Path of Exile. Everyone thought it was much better in many, many ways to Diablo 3. And given the latest we've had from Blizzard is fucking Diablo Immortal, it just couldn't be better PR for Grinding Gear Games. They even released like a commercial making fun of Diablo Immortal and kind of spoofing it up. But what is dangerous is this good guy company in New Zealand. It's not a huge team, it's a pretty small one. They're actually 80% owned by Tencent. And as soon as I saw that, and I only kind of knew about this 6 or 7 months ago, but when I saw it, I was like, Jesus Christ, what's happened? And if you look, not a lot has changed. And you might think, oh, well, that's all right. They just want to invest in a company. They're not doing anything wrong there. That's all fine. But what's going to happen down the line? Because when this news originally came out, the fans were very shitty. There's a lot of posts like this. You know, Chris cringed. I'm guessing he's one of the creators. And basically, he was expecting like a shitstorm from the fans. And it didn't happen because nothing really changed with the games. But what's happened in the last 2 years? Well, we know that we're going to be getting Path of Exile 2, and that could very well be where the changes kind of start. They didn't want to infect or kind of plant their seed in this particular game, Path of Exile 1. That's where they wanted to oversee things, take their time. As I said, like a manager who goes into a business and takes over, they might just look around, they might analyse, they'll be writing their notes, and they'll be thinking about what they can do to improve efficiency, to grow revenue. And I think that's exactly what Tencent's doing. So with Path of Exile 2, we may very well see what happens when Tencent have their influence in there. We know they're awful, so this isn't the case of, oh, I'm just assuming that Tencent are bad. Oh, they're Chinese, it must be something to do with that. They've made a lot of fucking knockoffs, and if you look at the monetization of games in China, it is absolutely disgusting. To give you a non-Tencent example, just to show you what it's like across the board, World of Warcraft. Now, if you play World of Warcraft in America or in Australia or most other countries, you will find that there's store mounts, maybe you can buy a level boost, but it's not ridiculous. But if you play the Chinese version, it is full to the brink of microtransactions. You can buy a whole bunch of shit, and we never hear about it. Unless you go looking for it on Chinese forums or on Chinese sites, people who are specifically talking about it, you won't know that this goes on. And there's not a chance that Tencent are wanting to get this heavily involved in the Western market unless they want to do the same thing over here. But you can't do it overnight. If Tencent comes in here, releases a bunch of mobile games, the odd AAA game with that sort of monetization attached, they'll be laughed all the way back to China. They won't get away with it. So they have to do this very slowly. They have to pretty much condition us, and I know when I get into this territory once again, I'm kind of sounding like this guy, but trust me, it's important. They're conditioning everyone so that over time this becomes the norm. You look at what's happened with microtransactions over the years, the loot boxes, when all of those games like Battlefront had loot boxes in them and people were kicking up a massive fuss, people were getting fucking shitty, the publishers pull back a little bit and say, oh, no, right, we're just going to have cosmetics next time. There's not going to be any loot boxes. Hip, hip, hooray. Are you going to give us like a round of applause? And people give them that fucking clap. It's so ridiculous because people should be going all the way and going, nah, we're not going to be fucking satisfied until every little scheme that you're doing is out of our game. If we're paying $60 for the game, we expect the full experience, and that's fucking that. No one was pushing that hard. People just forgot about it as soon as loot boxes removed. That seemed to be the buzzword that was angering people. Once they're gone, nah, let's just carry on. We'll move on to the next game, the next thing to get outraged at. That's what's going on. And Tencent know this as well. It's why they're being especially sneaky. And to give you an idea of some of their influence, you only need to go on their wiki page, so you can tell I'm going for the real references here, you know, the real credible stuff. But seriously, this gives you a bit of an idea of what they're up to. So they've got full ownership of Riot Games. So anytime you open the League of Legends client, you're sending your data straight to China. Because Tencent work with the Chinese government. That's exactly what they do. Like, video games aren't like their main thing. They've got a lot of other shit that's going on that we don't really hear about. So, League of Legends, Riot Games, all that is them. And Valorant, which they're trying to push as like this big new FPS, very much Tencent. You're playing a Tencent product there. Then they've got a bunch of other companies here, 80% in Grinding Gear Games, as I mentioned. Now, the most important one, at least at the moment, is that they've got 40% of ownership with Epic Games. And Tim Sweeney's tried to push back on that in the past when there was a lot of controversy with the Epic Store, which in my opinion was both Epic and Tencent's real push into the Western PC market. The controversy came out when people were saying, no, look, I'm not downloading your fucking launcher, Tim. I don't want to send my data to China. And Tim hit back and tried to act like, oh no, Tencent have got nothing to do with any of this. You know, I'm like the American hero. I'm just out there to try and help the consumer and maybe the small developers. That's it. Tencent have got nothing to do with us. I make all the decisions. And I'm sure Tim's got plenty of power. I'm sure he's got plenty going on there, but they're working together with this. So their interests might align because Tim's going to be making a whole bunch of money. He gets this whole tech influence thing going on, which I'm sure he loves. He's, after all, a big tech guy. He's getting all of that going on, but then Tencent are also getting into the Western market. And what's going on now between Epic, Tencent, and then Google and Apple, it's very similar to what was going on with the Epic Store. So the only difference here is that it was Epic versus Steam. The last year or the year before, however long that's been going on. So back then, Epic tried to paint themselves as the good guy again. They were talking about how they wanted to help the small developers, and that's all they were apparently doing. But it was proven to be bullshit, because all they've done since the Epic Store launched, since they tried to paint that message and get that across to consumers, that they were just out to help each other out and this is going to be a better experience, all they've fucking done is hidden games behind their store. There's been plenty of games that had their momentum snatched because of deals put in place by Epic. One of them was The Outer Worlds. I've never seen a game that was so hyped, people were so excited, go completely flat after the announcement that it was going to be exclusive to Epic and Microsoft Store, but no one gives a fuck about that. It's a shit store, even though they're trying to improve it. I'll give them that. In fact, the developer Obsidian kind of implied, tried to do it really subtly, that they weren't happy with the decision, but the damage had been done. And it really shows that Epic do not give a fuck about what any of these developers are doing. They don't give a fuck about the 12-year-olds they're trying to influence with 1984 ads. They don't care about the public perception that they're trying to push onto people, because that's all they're doing. For Epic, it's about the money. For Tencent, it's about the control. They're playing the long game to move into the West, and that's all they're really doing. When it comes to Tencent, they're not like a Ubisoft or an EA where they're just trying to increase their quarterly earnings every 3-4 months. For them, it's much more about, right, in 10 years, are we going to control fucking everything over there? Are we going to have our claws in basically every genre? Are we going to push our games within that genre to the very top? Who are we going to target next time? Is it going to be like a Call of Duty successor, something like that? That's all they're really thinking about. For Tencent, it's not just about having more shares of the profits. They don't just want a piece of the pie, they want the whole fucking pie. They're like that fat kid in Matilda who's eating the whole cake, he doesn't want to. They're like that, except they want to do it. They want to gouge. They want to be greedy. They're extremely evil. All you need to do is take a look over the fence, see who's leading them. Meet Ma Tang. So, he's the richest Ma. He's the richest person in China. He's worth 50 billion. Do you think that this is someone who just wants to innocently invest in a few video games to maybe marginally increase their profits? He's got no interest in doing that. It is completely about dominating the Western media. It's going to take time. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but he wants to really shift that public perception. Right now, the average consumer, people growing up, 10, 11, 12-year-olds, all they're seeing is Google. All they're seeing is Apple. Epic and Tencent want to change that so that perception shifts. Start them while they're young, and then as they grow up, they're going to be thinking differently. They're not going to be so religious when it comes to buying, whether it's Sony products, whether it's Apple products, Google, whatever. That's the whole thing here. They know they can't just waltz in, offer a competitive price, and people are going to leave their iPhones behind. It's not going to happen. And they're unfortunately smart enough to know that. So it's going to take a long fucking time indeed. So what we can do to really try and fight this off is, this lawsuit's a fucking joke. There's no reason to get invested in, oh, I want Epic to win, I want Google to win. No one's winning. It doesn't matter who wins the lawsuit, really. The problem with it is that even if Apple or Google manage to win it, Epic and Tencent are still going to spin it like they're the ones who've tried to do the good thing and evil has stomped on them. So they can't really lose in this scenario, because all they're really wanting to do here, and it's the reason the lawsuit was in place the second that Apple and Google pulled Fortnite from the store, it's the reason that they had that commercial ready to go, because their whole play here is the public perception. They just want people to see Google and Apple as the bad guys. They don't really give a fuck about like a few extra million, trillion, whatever a year, because it's not as effective in the long term. Tencent would happily trade, $1 trillion billion now, if it meant they could guarantee that Western dominance in 10 years' time. They're absolutely playing for that longevity. That's what they want. They want to be doing this for the next 100 years. So the best thing we can do as consumers to really fight back against it is just to avoid anything with Tencent involved. And you can see what they're involved in. Fortunately, it's all public information, and you can go a bit deeper than fucking Wikipedia. I'm sure there's much more out there. But you can avoid a lot of these games. There's ones like here, like Paradox Interactive. They own 5%. And then, I mean, you even look here, 5% ownership of American holding company Activision Blizzard. They're going to slowly try and increase the ownership in those companies. And it's going to be fucking hard to avoid a lot of their games. I know for myself, it's going to be really fucking difficult. There's a lot of games I enjoy, and if Tencent are in, like 15-20% of them, it's hard to kind of know what to do. But we can do our best, especially to avoid the big ones, like the League of Legends, games like that. As they start to buy out more shares in other companies, we can have a bit of a look. Hope that companies like Ubisoft, and they can push back as well. That's all we can really do. So Tencent, they're the fucking evil corp of this generation. Forget about Apple, Google, even fucking Amazon. I'm worried about Tencent and what they're going to do to video games, and then perhaps other areas of the media. So I hope you enjoyed my tinfoil hat rant. If you did, please comment, like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks very much, and bye-bye.